Well, hello and welcome to the very first edition of Grapes and Greens. And I'm delighted that we have a very good friend of mine, Mike Harris, as our very first guest. Mike,
Wow.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What an honour to be the first guest.
Oh, not at all. It's an honour to have you, myself. Very good. And it was fascinating. Obviously, I've known you for a long time now and doing some research on you. So I didn't realise that you actually started with goal.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember Shoot. I'm that old. I remember Shoot. So came out of, you were a journalist, university?
Absolutely. I went to university to basically go and watch Everton. But the way to watch Everton was to go and do a degree at Liverpool University to read geography and archaeology.
Yeah.
I actually got into journalism through football fanzines. So I started to get to know the guys who did When Skies Are Grey, which was Everton fanzine, got writing for them, eventually became one of the editors. And I guess that then led me into that first proper job at Goal magazine.
Yeah. Amazing. How long were you there and what were you doing?
So I was a writer. Editorial assistant was the official title.
Okay.
And that was literally go and get people's lunch, always be at the bar queuing for drinks, and then got to write about the thing that I really loved, football. I think when I was a teenager, really wanted to play football. Played to a pretty decent level, but I think probably when I got to about 17, I started growing widthways rather than height-wise, which for a goalkeeper, never probably the best combo. So ended up thinking, actually, do you know what? Let me write about these guys. So maybe did football writing for 5 or 6 years. Absolutely loved it. Made some great connections. Found out as well about how to try and get a story out of people who don't want to give you a story. I think it was interesting. Footballers back in what was the early 90s, I think they'd had a lot of run-ins with the Red Tops. They were very reticent of speaking to anybody. You just blanketed as press, whether you were a national newspaper journalist, fanzine writer, or a magazine writer. So you learned how to try and get a story out of people who didn't really want to give you a story, even though, we weren't about dishing the dirt. We were about trying to celebrate the game of football. And I think throughout my career as a journalist, I've always wanted to, accentuate the positives. It's my sort of nature, really, and want to tell good news stories. I think people, it's fueling people's passions. So
absolutely, and that's what people want. They want to have that make believe as well, don't they? And
definitely.
Want to know what it's like to be that footballer.
Absolutely, you need to
desperate when you're a kid to be a footballer. And what's it like?
I always think that journalism, media, full stop, is about giving people a window into a world they want to know more about. Mm-hmm. And if you, as podcast host, as a writer, as a videographer, if you can help, sort of lift the lid and give people an insight into, say, that world they want to know more about, they're passionate about, then you're doing the right thing.
Then you moved on from Goal and went lifestyle and Telegraph?
Did a bit for the Telegraph, did a bit for Men's Health magazine. Wouldn't necessarily know it to look at me, but that was really good fun. And then I was, can you believe it, for 2 years contributing editor for New Woman magazine.
There you go.
Yeah, so I think
feminine side, did you?
Yeah, it was. I think I wrote columns from a guy's perspective. That was somebody who I'd worked with at Men's Health. She went on to be editor of New Woman, and asked me to write a column. So, and then got into golf 2001, really.
Okay. And was that when you started playing?
No, I started playing. I was quite late to the game. I didn't start playing until I was sort of 16, 17. I'd always played team sports, ball sports. But my uncle was a really, really keen golfer. He was a dentist. He was an amateur rugby player in the days when rugby was an amateur game. He'd sort of, his claim to fame was he captained the Barbarians for a number of years. Okay. So very handy player. Never made it on the full England team. And apparently he was a winger. And he used to have a thing. He always wanted to try and touch down behind the post, make the conversion easier for the kicker. And I think it was in a probables versus possibles match for England. He got tackled behind the dead ball line, lost the ball, and that was can't be doing that. Too risky. But he was a really, really keen golfer. He had lessons with Henry Cotton at Ashridge. Told me a wonderful story about my uncle had sort of got down to, I don't know, sort of 2 or 3 and sort of, wanting to get to scratch. So thought he'd book himself in with a lesson with Henry. Henry, chauffeur drove him up to the practice ground at Ashridge. Henry got out, cashmere coat on, fully suited and booted. He said, Mr. Gray, he said, booked a lesson with me. And my uncle said, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to get better. He said, okay. He said, well, let me watch you hit a few. And obviously my uncle was so nervous, hitting balls in front of Henry, a couple of sort of, a couple of thin ones, then started to hit a couple of good ones. And then Henry Cotton gave him this one-handed drill, which he proceeded to show him. So basically clipped, sort of 5 away, one hand. He said, can you, Mr. Gray, can you do that? Tried squirting them everywhere.
Yeah.
So when you can do that, come back and I'll actually teach you something. So it was a very long way around of me saying, I got into golf age sort of 16, 17, went on a holiday down to see my uncle, who lived in Cornwall at the time. And he said, should we go to the driving range? Okay, let's, and I found that, I won't say golf easy, but I didn't find it difficult. I managed to hit the ball, get it airborne. Thought, this is good fun, something very different.
There's a lot of people sports people can't, because if you think sport generally is a moving ball, you've got to react to it.
Yeah,
where you've got to hit a stationary ball and hold on, I've got to make that work rather than me work towards the ball.
Yeah, and as we all know, those fundamentals of golf, if you don't have them, you're starting. Yeah. But my uncle was really good at, helping me understand the fundamentals. It was no get you on the golf course straight away. Let's go and hit balls at the range. He was a really avid practicer. So he'd go at the range once, twice a day. He'd sort of retired as a dentist by then, living down in Cornwall. And we'd sort of normally go for a mid-morning session and an afternoon session if he wasn't playing. So, I just found it was really good.
Yeah.
My first round was when I went to boarding school in the Cotswolds, and had one of the masters really keen on golf, and he sort of knew there was a few kids who were sort of into golf, and he said, right, okay, we're going to go for a round of golf at Broome Manor, which is a muni outside of Swindon. It's where David Howell grew up, played a lot of golf.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so my first round was at Broome Manor. First tee shot, 5-iron, duffed it. But then walked up the 20 yards, the next ball, another 5-iron, absolutely striped it, and that's it. Never looked back from golf. I've still got the scorecard, 119 first round golf, which is not, I think I had 1 par in there.
That's not bad though.
Not terrible.
The first time out. No, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it was a symmetrical it's 116. I think I was out in 58, back in 58. So consistency. Yeah.
That's pretty good. And what age were you then?
Must have been 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it came down rapidly. You got the bud like so many people do. School holidays, it's like, let's get out there, and it all comes down.
Absolutely. And so very lucky that, I'd spend a lot of time down with my aunt and uncle in Cornwall and, practice twice a day and then possibly play as well. And and then went to university, Liverpool, so to go and watch Everton. And University Golf Society was £5 for annual membership, and then we got to go and play at West Lancs for £5 a round. So learned how to play links golf there, then got onto I'd say university squad. I'd only ever play in the team if they needed somebody with a car. So I played a lot of, played more away games than home. If somebody who was a good golfer was either tied up with exams or had a horrific hangover. So I started playing football at university, but we used to play Wednesday, play Saturday, train Monday, train Thursday. Quite frankly, got in the way of my social life. So I quite like the golf when you could just, amazing. We had a 5-day membership at Royal Liverpool. And I think that was 45 quid a year. Learned a lot of golf playing with better golfers. And I always think it's something, if you are a good golfer and you can, just see that you probably have a little responsibility to get people into the game.
Yeah.
And it's not, sometimes it can be, for better golf, it can be frustrating playing with higher handicaps, but actually they learn so much from you.
Yeah, definitely.
Both in terms of how to get the ball around the course, but etiquette of the game, everything.
But also, you played with people who were better than you to get better. So,
absolutely.
you didn't always give back. You did it. So
I was always comfortably the worst golfer on the university squad, but very enthusiastic, learned a lot. And certainly after, 3 years playing at Hoylake, just was totally...
What a place to play, though.
Yeah, very lucky. And very lucky to be a country member there now. So it's a very, very special place.
So 2003, Golf Monthly, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I actually came to... The publishing company was IPC Media. I came to launch a golf stroke lifestyle series of one-shots called Total Golf. It was IPC's answer to, Golf Punk. Seeing what Golf Punk had done, come along, Tim and the guys, totally disrupted the market. Amazing product, very ahead of its time. I think if they'd have had the internet, really in the way that we do these days, they would, still be they'd be a roaring success. But obviously Golf Monthly, pretty, established mag, top end of the market. They sort of, publishing company wanted to try and have a title that was a bit more mainstream, a bit more for the everyday golfer. So I came along to launch that. So it's that, myself, Neil Tappan, who's now editor of Golf Monthly, was my number two for, all of the time that I was editor of Golf Monthly. That we just sat up in a little special project room, coming up with ideas. And then, that only lasted maybe 18 months. But I think we made a good enough impression that then when there was an opening at Golf Monthly, both Neil and I got full-time jobs there.
Brilliant. And only the 8th editor of Golf Monthly. That's pretty cool. I didn't realise that.
It's a bit like with the university golf team, definitely the least celebrated lineup of editors. It started, of course, in 1911 with Harold Hilton, who was a great amateur golfer, won amateur championship 4 times and the Open Championship twice. We share one thing in common, both Hoylake members. But I think he would be turning in his grave if he saw some of the poor rounds that I put in under competition play. But only number 8, followed in the footsteps of famous names like Percy Huggins and Malcolm Campbell and Colin Callender, and I took over from Jane Carter, and I think
Jane,
absolutely. Think sort of she was very much ahead of her time, sort of real trailblazer in women's golf media, did a fantastic job as editor of Golf Monthly, and I took over from Jane in 2006.
Yeah, and that's probably where I first met you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would think so.
And it comes as a story because it was around about, actually it was a little bit after that, because I was still at St Andrews in 2006, and then 2007 I went to Lomond.
Yep.
And I think this is where we first met at gigs.
Absolutely.
So Nick Lunn got together with me, I remember, in the Spike Bar. There was Neil Gray, myself, and he said, look, go onto all these societies, and I do so much work for society and corporate days, whatever. We should have a golf society. And I said, well, I'll host it. And I said, but not just now, let's do it, in the winter. And we got a great collection of golf industry folk for the first one. And I think today, actually, there's one of the, for those who were there, they always remember it, probably for the red wine, because there was a lot taken. Then the fact that we were meant to go out the next day and it snowed, and we wanted to go to Dundonald.
Absolutely. No, that was a legendary evening. I think everyone was so excited to be coming to Loch Lomond. I think I'd been before to play, but had never been to stay. And had not really sort of been able to immerse myself in the clubhouse. And yes, probably a little over enthusiastic in my
a few people
refueling.
Did that, though, to be fair.
I remember there was the cocktails going round with can't remember, it was it'll come to me, but there was a fruit in it. It kept on boshing on the nose. Lychee cocktail.
Yeah, that was one of the members' favourites.
It was. I certainly took a shine to that. And I don't think I had to be escorted to bed, but I, definitely managed to make my way down to the to those sort of lodges down by the loch. Absolutely fantastic. When I've been to check-in, I thought, this is pretty much the swishiest place I'd ever been to.
Yeah.
Woke up in the morning, fully clothed, shoes on, suit on still, glasses on, thinking, oof, okay, well, definitely had a couple last night. And of course, yeah, you know, as you said, we had snow on the ground, so we went down to Dundonald, played, and, you know, as golf always does a wonderful job of getting rid of your hangover.
Yeah.
So bit of bracing, you know, Ayrshire, sea air, and we were right as rain.
And that's where, you know, you kind of understand how close the golf industry is. And I'm guessing you're kind of right at the heart of that, because you had to find stories from those people, and you're covering golf, which is always moving, whether that's, you know, from a tour perspective, whether that's a club perspective, or, you know, manufacturing and apparel as well.
And I think absolutely that, you know, stories as a journalist don't come to you. You've got to go and find them. They don't fall in, or very rarely do they fall in your lap. Had one time where I got a phone call out of the blue from Nike's PR person to say, have you got anybody who could go to Dubai? And he was like, Thursday. Got anybody who could go to Dubai on Saturday? Why? We've got an interview with Tiger on the Sunday. A one-on-one opportunity. Like, yep, okay, we can find somebody. So Neil Tappin went along to that. We had to hastily think of questions for Tiger, but yeah, that was probably the only example of something really falling into your lap.
Yeah.
Other times you really got to try and work for the story. It's about who you know and about the stories and the insight you get at those networking events. And I think particularly as, you know, media is becoming increasingly more competitive, as players look to do their own social media, because it's, you know, probably easier for them, frankly, than speaking to journalists. You definitely have to look at however you can get that time with mainly tour players, or with any expert from a brand, or, you know, get that insight for, you know, what might be a really good story. It's often over a glass of wine, over a beer, over a round of golf. It's not.
That's where Grapes&Greens comes in.
Absolutely.
You know, wine and golf.
Yeah.
It's a great connection. And people always are like, well, what is the connection? You know, how do you explain that? I said, well, just look at the Open Championship.
Yeah.
Claret Jug.
Absolutely.
You know, they're playing for something that puts wine in. So, you know, golf and wine has been there from day dot, really.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's, you know, golf, you know, gives you that time, you know, normally meet up beforehand. You got that round of golf, then, you know, time afterwards. And it's just that time to network, to chat about life, you know, stuff and everything, chat about your round of golf. But definitely, you know, post round, glass of wine, chance to sort of reflect on your round, and then, you know, wherever the conversation takes you.
Who would you say is one of the biggest characters that you sort of come across after a glass of wine, or in the dealings with, you know, you've had to Golf Monthly, or even, you know, as of today?
Well, do you know, interesting, couple of characters, one that people will have really heard of, and then somebody that very few people will have heard of. I'd say Chubby Chandler was absolutely brilliant to deal with. So when I took over as editor of Golf Monthly, I really wanted to bring back the playing editor role. And funny enough, about it, Brew Manor, David Howe.
Yep.
David was sort of riding, you know, high in the world. He was probably world top 10 at this point. I'd done some work with David before. He's such a nice guy. You know, had opinions, wasn't, you know, afraid to share them. So I remember speaking to Chubby about, you know, could we do a deal? And I sort of told him what I could pay. He went, oh, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. I said, I know it's not, but that really is as much as we can pay. He said, I tell you what. He said, here's the thing. He said, we'll do the deal. And I think Howler was maybe like, he was definitely in the top 10, maybe 6 or 7 in the world at the time. He said, if Howler gets to number 1 next year, you pay me double. So you pay double. Okay. Howler was on a good run. And then Howler and I always laugh about it. Like that's probably the end of his career when I shook on that deal for, you know, would have paid double if he'd been world number 1. So I think Chubby's a great guy. I always enjoy spending time with him. I think he works really hard for his players. And interestingly, now I'm sort of moving into, the sort of world of management part of the, new business that I've got. I'm representing not tour players, but influencers. I always liked the way that Chubby worked. He was, brilliant at networking, really good fun to be around. But he definitely worked really hard for his players to get them, good deals and the right deals as well. To, he was protective of them, but not overprotective, because I think that when it comes to professional sport, fans want to know more about their stars or the stars of the game, because they know that it's a completely different game that the pros play to us. We might hit one or two good shots around. For them, it's every shot's near perfection, and it's like, how do you humanize that? And I think that job of a good agent is to allow media to to work with the players to come up with some good stuff. We can't just say, okay, talk through your round, or get the first hit driver, 6-iron, one putt. You need the stories behind the scores.
But he had characters, didn't he? You think of Clarkey, you think of Lee Westwood. That's really where he made his mark, didn't he?
Most definitely. David Howe, Graham McDowell, Paul McGinley. Really, interesting stable of talent that he represented.
It's that lifestyle that he brought with it. They didn't mind a drink. They had the horses. They had the private jets.
And I think that's why, probably if you asked most golf fans, UK golf fans for a long time, who would be your favourite? Who would you really love to go and have a game of golf with and a beer with? Be Darren Clarke, because he just Darren epitomised that, sort of amazing golfer, but was definitely having a when the good times were good, he was enjoying it, and why not? These guys, work hard. They're incredible talents. Why not? Can't be a robot. You've gotta.
You think there's too many robots now?
I think it's it is very competitive tour golf these days, and I think that as the bar keeps on getting raised for performance, that players probably realise they need to be spending a lot more time on the practice, in the gym, working with their psychologist, taking it seriously, because it is a job.
Yeah.
But I think there are fewer characters, and I think there are fewer rivalries. And I think that's probably where, for me, professional golf is lacking at the moment. I think when I, really started getting into golf, those sort of rivalries, a lot of them born out of the Ryder Cup, but don't really. There doesn't seem to be that sort of needle these days.
You think of Tiger with Philly with
absolutely.
Bernie Els. Those three didn't particularly get on, did they?
No,
really?
absolutely,
and for the right reasons, as they want to win.
Absolutely,
it wasn't about the money. It was just, but Tiger was just.
And you think,
much better.
Seve versus anybody with American accent. And then,
apart from when they got the right, him and Langer hated each other, and they got hugging each other,
And those, rivalries between, Faldo and, Langer and Lyle and Seve and Ollie, Woozy as well. It was felt really, when they came together for the Ryder Cup, amazing. But then, week in, week out, I think they really, and I say Tiger, just sort of set the bar. He wasn't anyone's friend when he was trying to win. And I think so it feels a little bit now like, does it, and maybe it's a reflection of the amount of money in the game, but it's like, does it really matter if these guys, they come first or 10th?
We had a conversation the other day why there aren't so many characters. It may be because of social media. In fact, they can't be seen to be doing, because everybody jumps on it straight away. It's like, you can't say that.
I know.
Whereas there was none of that, 10, 15 years ago. You could pretty much do what you wanted, say what you wanted. Now, you can't. So are you sort of pigeonholing yourself to, I've got to look like this because I'm, whatever. And I think that's a shame, isn't it? I understand why they're doing it, because it's the number of followers and the opportunities. It's a monetary thing, but you want the character, don't you?
It's difficult because social media does bring fans closer to superstars, but also I think it does mean that I just think it's a cultural thing that life is different now to how it was 10, 20 years ago, and you've got to be mindful of what you say and to who you say it and where you say it. So but listen, professional golf, there's some really good stuff going on. I think it's in probably a period of flux at the moment. But I like TGL. I was out in the States, didn't get to go to any of them, but chat to people who did go, said it was, good spectator experience. Watched it primetime TV out in the US, and I think it's,
It's funny. My son's looking at the whole golf, so he loves his golf or whatever, and he put into AI and goes, what's the future of golf?
Yeah.
CGI came up, that was it. It's like, and you think, we were at an event on Friday night at Pitch,
absolutely,
and it's a great, it's so different.
Completely.
I was actually looking across, and I was thinking, like 20 years ago, we'd have, the corduroys and a jacket and a tie. You got the bucket hats on, you got some jeans, you got a hoodie, all that kind of stuff. But you think, well, that's great.
Absolutely, it's a democratization of golf over the last 10 years, but obviously particularly since COVID has been great. Really, really good.
We kind of moved from there, but you said there was one other person who people didn't know. I'm fascinated to know who that is.
So this was just come back from 3 weeks in the US, 1 week over at the trade show in Orlando, and then 2 weeks over in California, where our new offices are over there. And we went up to LA to play at Penmar Golf Club. I would think it's got to be the flattest course in the world. It would make Cambridgeshire look like, sort of a mountainous region. Just a little 9-holer in sort of Venice, in LA. So pretty sort of arty part of LA. And they had a fundraiser on for the fire relief, obviously for the terrible fires that have been ravaging the LA region. So it was a big fundraiser there. Penmar's a pretty cool place. We took our golf clubs. There was 4 of us, 3 other guys that I've gone into business with, and it was great. It's like $35. You can play as many holes as you want around the 9-hole loop. And we got on the tee, first tee, we were away, and we joined up with a 3-ball on the next tee. It was pretty busy out there. So we played as a 7-ball from the second hole. One of the members of the 3-ball that we joined up with was a very lively character. She was called Paige. Can't remember her surname. Beach blonde, very vivacious. She'd made a lot of money in New York on the money markets, and had then got into golf, had retired from golf. And she, I'd be probably similar age to me, like early 50s, but absolutely obsessed with golf. And she was a real character. She lived down in Palm Springs. She'd driven up in her Mercedes Sprinter van that she'd had all kitted out inside with like a sort of bed and everything. It was just a, sort of traveling hotel. And we got chatting, and on the way around, she said, "Oh, got a gun in my golf bag." And like things you don't expect to have in your golf bag. And it's like, okay, well, we better. She was like super friendly, but it's like she was a real character. And then finished golf. She said, "I'm just going to get changed." Like, get changed. I don't need locker room, that sort of. She's gone back into a Sprinter van, came out all glammed up. So she was a real character for sure.
Yeah.
So
and there's so many characters in golf, though, isn't there? I mean, some of the old boys that when I grew up, again, the drinking stories back in the day, was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can go into that.
Well,
we might get shot, but
I'm very lucky to be a member of SAP at Royal Liverpool. A lot of great characters up there. One of my best friends, a retired barrister, so obviously used to speaking and giving stories for a living. He could, he can hold court for sure.
I know. There's so many of them. And that's what I grew up with. Because you sort of copy, as you said, like not only copying what they do on the golf course, you kind of copy what they did in the clubhouse.
Absolutely,
it was kind of. Well, if they do it, I don't mind that. I don't mind a glass of wine. So, this is a question for you. You've done a lot of golf. You've travelled. I mean, you've played over 500 golf courses.
Yeah, I've not kept a spreadsheet of them, which some of the guys who I used to work with at Golf Monthly, they were religious about keeping a spreadsheet, and they could tell you everywhere. In fact, I met somebody at the PGA show who just invented this app called Flag My Golf, and you can go in and mark off every course that you played. Right. It'd take a while to do it. I've started to do it, but I definitely, I'd written them all down maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, and I was about 430, and I've definitely played 70 courses then. I'd like to get an accurate record. But
so if you won the golf lottery,
Yeah.
i.e. you could have here's a bag of money.
yeah,
What aspirationally are you going to be doing with that? Whether that's traveling, if that's playing golf, if that's buying stuff, or all encompassing. Because Grapes and Greens not only is about the connection of wine and golf, but it's also sort of opening up ideas from an aspirational point of view. Because you and I have been very lucky. We've been to some of the best courses, look behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I've been lucky that I've worked at St Andrews and Loch Lomond. And, when you've got those two places, people will sort of open the doors for you. This is great. And met some amazing people and been to some amazing clubs where a lot of golfers haven't heard of these places, let alone think about going. And they're tremendous. So I just wondered, we're going to ask this across the board.
So I think it's a really, really interesting question. What I certainly wouldn't do is I wouldn't spend any money on trying to get any better at golf, because I'm happy with the level I'm at. My handicap has doubled in the last 10 years. I don't feel like I'm playing twice as badly. I'm enjoying the game more than I ever have. And I enjoy the game so much because of, I would say it's the people you play with and the places you play at. The score is, if you play well, great.
Yeah.
If you don't play well, you're going to be playing again in the not too distant future. So for me, people and places is what it's all about. It's what the game of golf is all about. I'm probably at two ends of the scale. Never been to Australia and New Zealand. So would love to go and play golf there. Some of the amazing golf courses, whether it's the Sandbelt courses in Australia, some of those amazing, Carrai Cliffs, Cape Kidnappers, Tariti in New Zealand, go across to Tasmania, some of the courses there. And of course, amazing wine region. Well, Australia and New Zealand wine.
Absolutely. Amazing.
Some of my favourites. So, if I won a lot of money on the lottery, it would probably be a sort of couple of month tour around Australia and New Zealand playing golf, enjoying some wine, enjoying a bit of sunshine. One of my best mates, he emigrated to New Zealand, then he came back to England for a year and then he realised he was much better. So he's gone back there. So he might be my guide around there. He's a good golfer. He plays off at one or two. So would quite fancy a trip around Australia and New Zealand. And then probably at the other end of things, I'd love to get a camper van and drive around Ireland, playing all the links courses in Ireland. Now, great friend of mine up at Royal Liverpool, Sam Cooper, has documented his journey around the British Isles playing links courses.
Fantastic.
He just did it. He said it's absolutely really brilliant.
Yeah.
I love Ireland. Got family roots over there. I love the culture. Do love a pint of Guinness. I know it's not renowned.
So you had Christmas over there. Christmas
New Year, just over in Kinsale. Didn't play any golf, but certainly had a few Guinnesses. And I do love golf in Ireland. I think the courses are spectacular. And it's not so much about wanting to play all the, the sort of really, the Port Rushers, the County Downs. Love to play those, but actually, it's the stuff that's off the beaten track a bit. Some of the, little 9-hole courses are really, genuine hidden gems.
They've also got great par threes. That's where I started.
Yeah.
Because obviously with a name like Flanagan.
Yeah, absolutely.
The old man said, we're going on a holiday. And the first time I ever played golf was on a par 3 at Killarney. On one Sunday afternoon, got higher clubs and suddenly I was left-handed and didn't know that. And off you go, that was it. But they're brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's where, people start. And I got hooked. I got absolutely hooked.
And I'd love to do that on my own and to then, hopefully get paired up with people because I just think you meet,
so many people.
So many great people in golf.
Absolutely.
And, you get to hear, stories of club history or characters at golf clubs. You get to feel like you're a member for the day.
Yeah.
And I would just that would be, I don't know how long it would take, but however long it took, it'd be
cool.
Would be good fun.
Good. That's
so sort of either end of the scale.
And then before we break for a nice glass of wine, so one course left to play in your life, where would it be? Why would it be that course? And then who would you play with?
That's a really, really good question. And do you know what? I'm not going to not answer it, but I'm going to tell you another story. That the great golf writer Di Davis wrote a wonderful piece about what turned out. He was dying of cancer. He knew it was going to be his final round. He loved Roll West Norfolk, Brancaster, and he loved it because it's a quirky old place, but it's a very playable link. Even if you're not a great golfer, no big carries really. Just a fun out and back 9-hole, and then obviously you got that lovely clubhouse there. Sometimes gets cut off by the tide. And he wrote a most amazing piece, and his wife Patricia offered it to Golf Monthly to publish it. And I always say in my 17 years of editing, that's the favourite piece I've ever published or ever been editor of, responsible for publishing. He wrote this wonderful piece about that final round. And so you sort of put yourself in that position. You think, oh, crikey, well, where would it be? If I said the old course, that would be a bit of a cliche, but for the reasons that Brancaster is great in that I find the old course very playable. It's there are no carries.
Yeah.
You've got to try quite hard to lose a golf ball there. It can be done.
Can be done.
But particularly if they've cut a lot of the wind bushes back.
Yeah.
But what I love about St Andrews is just that hustle and bustle around 1 and 18. I love the holes at the end of the course, the loop, which is, inspiration for the name of my new agency. And I just think the more I play the old course, the more I love it, the more nuances I find in it. The more, more of a challenge it is, because you'll know, the more you play, when you've hit your tee shot, and if you've taken that more aggressive line down the right hand side, it always gives you a better shot into the green. But it's very easy to hit it left because you're hitting away from the trouble. So I would probably say the old course. It's a bit cliched, isn't it? And I would play it with my two best friends, Benji and Joe. I'm sure they'll be listening in. They're both members down at Lip Hook.
Okay.
And I've grown up, they're my two oldest friends. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And I've grown up with those guys. We used to play a lot of football. They're brothers. We used to play a lot of football and cricket together. And then we all sort of got into golf at a similar time. And we always have we have a thing called the MJB trophy, which is a little silver spoon that one of them, I think it was Benji, got given by his sister as a christening gift when he was, 2, and he's always kept it. Never know what to do with it. So that's the MJB trophy, and we play 3 times a year when we're just the 3 of us get together, and it is always super competitive.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely have a good laugh on the way round. We all know each other, and our families know each other, so there's always a lot to chat about. And I always think, actually, I prefer playing a 3-ball than a 4-ball. Something about it. Number one, you play quicker. Number 2, don't know, just the dynamic of a 3 to me is always better than a 4. And I've taken them up to play St Andrews, and we've had brilliant times up there. So I would say, I think if I was looking for another course to play, I do love Sunningdale. The new, if I'm playing well, though very, very rarely, but the old I just find great place to play golf. But yeah, those two are my oldest friends. We played a lot of golf together. We sort of, been through the ups and downs of life together. And we never, there's always some sort of bickering between the 3 of us at some point, but it's like,
that's what makes it fun, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But at the end, it's always, a bit of a competition who can get the bar and buy the drinks first. So yeah, but I do love St Andrews. It's that, the buzz of teeing off at the first is just, every time I do it, it's incomparable. And then when you take people for the first time and you see their reaction to it, and you see, this is what it's all about.
I mean, I worked there for 7 years.
Yeah.
And the amount of tears that are on that first tee are incredible.
Yeah.
The fathers and sons, husbands and wives, it is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Never realised that until you work there and see it and what it means to people. I was lucky enough, I played with my dad and my son.
Okay.
So we had 3 generations play the old course.
Yeah. And I think you have, it's golf gives you that. It's say unique as a sport in that you can play from 5, 6 right up until you fall off your perch.
Yeah.
And so many generations can play together, male and female, different playing abilities because of tees and the handicap system. And that's what I love about golf. It's sort of and it tends to attract good people because I think golf is such a frustrating game.
Yeah.
That it pretty quickly weeds out people who aren't,
My dad always says the way you play golf tells you a lot about the person.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we now are moving on to the interesting part, the wine. So the great part of Grapes and Greens. And every edition, we're going to discuss a glass of wine and where it's come from. So I know that you like a Pinot Noir because you said when you go to the R&A, you always have a New Zealand Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I love red wine, but I'm more to the lighter end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a Matthew Fritz, Californian. It's actually made the vineyard is in Monterey.
Okay.
So literally in Gulf country,
Absolutely.
just down the road from Pebble Beach, just down from Cypress Point where the Walker Cup is.
Yeah.
And we've actually, I've said to Matt Banana, who is actually the owner of Matthew Fritz. So the Matthew is Matthew Fritz.
Yeah.
And I said, do you have any accommodation on the vineyard? He said, yeah, we do. I was like, any chance of September? So we've got accommodation for the Walker Cup,
Fantastic.
which is pretty cool. So we're looking forward to trying to get a ticket or accreditation, one of the two, to be able to do it. So, but this wine, the vineyard is made. It's vineyard, but it's also a fruit grower as well.
Okay.
So it produces a lot of fruit. Goes all over the States. But Matt goes in there and makes the wine there. He's based in Chicago. But this Pinot Noir, to me, is really mouth-watering. It's really easy to drink. It would suit your style.
Yeah.
It's not heavy.
Yeah.
It's subtle. It's kind of opal fruits to me. I could just, another strawberry opal fruit. Thank you very much. Is going through. And it's really well made. And to me, it's great value for money. This comes in, I always think American wines, very expensive, especially when you go to America, you go, oh, it's chunky. And then over here, you kind of go like, because of the duties and everything else. But this, for Wine and Earth, this is 19 quid. It's a really good, really well-made wine. Matt's been in the industry all his life, worked for his dad, going around the country, selling his wine, and then wanted to get his own wine going. And he's been really successful. Lovely guy. He came over in November. I met him, and we did an event with David Howe.
Brilliant.
And Mashi up and the guys loved it. Had 24 of their VIPs, and this went down really well. So cheers, Mike. Let's see what you think. Great nose.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been open. It's a bit cold in here, so it hasn't probably opened up totally, but it's got a great nose, great colour.
Yeah.
It's like 2022.
Oh, that's dangerous.
And it just mouth-watering. You could have a bit of cheese with it, go down a little bit, but equally quite happy to suck that this afternoon.
Most of them. That is absolutely delightful. I say that lighter. I do enjoy a glass or two of of a more sort of full-bodied, heavier wine, but I definitely think that for me, that lighter style just sort of
I agree. He makes a lovely, in the Matthew Fritz range, he makes a really lovely Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
It's a 2019 that we've got. And I tried that first. I love that as well. And then on Friday night, we tried the Chardonnay as well. And equally, had a lot of the ladies come up to me and say, like, that was a really decent, a decent drop, as they say.
So, no, I love that. It's great. Funny enough, I went out to, excuse me, out to Monterey, not, trying to think, 2023. I've lost track of years. So autumn before last with Porsche for the golf circle final. Got lucky enough to had an invite along for that to cover it, and we had an amazing combination of golf at Pebble and Spyglass. Day at the Porsche Rennsport reunion in Laguna Seca, which was absolutely fantastic. And then we had a couple of nights out at vineyards. And I've always enjoyed American wines, as you say. Different style to New Zealand, Australia, to France. But I do really like them, and that's exceptional.
You said that we kind of play around a little bit more. We're allowed to play a little bit with it, and not quite so restricted. And I think it comes over like that. And I mean, I would recommend that highly. And certainly we've sold it into a few golf clubs with Through Wine and Earth now. And I think
perfect.
They're seeing it as a really good wine that, it's not the cheapest, but it's not the most expensive. It sits nicely right in the middle of the range. And I think you get a really great value for money.
I think you could really enjoy a few glasses of that after golf, but and year round as well. Year round drinking. I think that's.
I'd happily drink that in the middle of August as it is in February day.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it is today.
Yeah.
So moving on to the future.
Yeah.
And the Loop, which obviously you've highlighted is named after the Loop of St Andrews, which is great. I think I love the name, and really great that there's three others who've joined as well. All pretty heavyweights within the golf industry media sector.
Well, it's interesting. Three of us used to work together at Golf Monthly. So Paula Hagan, Alex Neri and myself, and then Chris Barrett has come with Paula Hagan from FootJoy. And it's one of those sort of things that I thought about at various points, being a Golf Monthly. I quite like to, I always really liked working with good agencies. Obviously two of your great friends, Phil Craggill and Neil Gray, did an incredible job at GMS. Dave Silver's at sort of Prof Sport. Dear old John Collard, sadly, late John Collard at Sports Impact. Been some great agency businesses out there, and I thought I love creating content, but also I like the relationships and commercial side of the business. And I think agencies just give you that opportunity to sort of, it's multi-skill set really. And I thought about setting up, an agency, chatted to a few people about it, had never really done anything because we tend to be, I probably would have the idea when I'm sort of in a, periodically, I think in any career, you go through these sort of little, sort of indulge in, I'm going to do something different. And then something exciting would happen. At Golf Monthly, whether it was new owners or something new happening, or we'd recruit some new people. And I thought, I don't know, actually, day job's fine, love it. And I just sort of probably, there was this sort of itch that I wanted to scratch. I came up with an idea for a second brand to sit alongside Golf Monthly that maybe addressed more of the, I guess, people who are newer to golf, like less traditional audience. Nearly got that off the ground, but not quite. But a lot of the ideas we had around that, in terms of particularly the type of content creators who would front that content, it's from the creator community. So whether it's PGA pros or just people who are great presenters, love being in front of the camera, love social media. Just had the idea. There's definitely something there that, around storytelling that I think content creators bring that is different to traditional media. And just have, really enjoyed the business of golf. So probably wanted to get a bit more into that side of things. So the new business, The Loop, it's a sort of 360 agency. So we'll be representing brands, destinations, but then also creators. I think it'll be a big part of what I do is sort of, working with those creators, help them build their brand, come up with new content ideas, and then to monetize their talent, because creators are an interesting way for brands or destinations to, partnerships to work with creators to help with that storytelling. And then we really want to put on events as well. And I think it's golf days with a difference, or golf experiences with a difference. And then we'll also, because we're all content creators at heart, we're going to produce a quarterly journal, like a high-end journal, which I just think will, it's pretty simple editorial mantra to it. stories about interesting people, places, or products. It won't be a traditional golf mag. So there's a lot of great golf mags out there, like Golf Monthly. It'll try and do things a bit different, probably more in-depth storytelling, more photography in there. I love golf, great photography, particularly great golf photography.
Yeah.
Chances to showcase that. And
So many good ones out there now.
Absolutely.
It's a brilliant one.
Absolutely. So, to produce that sort of really, weighty, going to be on very heavyweight paper stock. I just think that will, let's say a lot of great agencies out there who do, a number of elements of those. We think that we're probably joined the dots again. Hence the name, the loop, try and, Strapline Golf Connected. It's to bring those different elements together. Maybe we've got a vision for events being at perhaps a destination we represent fronted by creators who we represent. Think there's real interest. When I went and watched Rick Shields play with the guys from Good at Wallasey on the eve of the Open at Royal Liverpool a couple of years ago, it was like, saw maybe a crowd of 2,000 people out watching them. Definitely feel like creators are, they've got huge fan bases. They're either great golfers and great entertainers, or they're just great entertainers, good to spend time with. So that's sort of the vision around events. And then, I think that's probably sort of storytelling. It's maybe an overused phrase, but I think bringing brands and products to life, you've got to, work hard to get people's attention, because it's a competitive market out there.
And that's kind of where we are with Grapes&Greens. Is like, we've seen that middle ground and everybody's kind of doing it. It's actually my son who's like, Dad, you've got grey hair. Why don't you go on YouTube? There's not many people on YouTube with grey hair. But he said, like, with your opportunity, the people that you've known over 35 years, to get behind the scenes that people want to see at those clubs, and the characters that actually run those clubs as well. It's quite interesting. And I think also some of the brands from a lifestyle perspective, that are connected again through golf, but not actually within golf. For example, wine. It's all very much part of the culture.
Completely.
And as we were saying, and what I learned when I was at Loch Lomond was, you talk to some of the members after a round of golf, and the conversations that go into lifestyle, classic cars, to cigars, to pens, like houses, to all sorts of things, and obviously travel as well. So, and you learn so much, and that's where I think we're trying to provide some information to our listeners and our watchers, that there's a big world out there, and it doesn't have to be sort of pigeonholed, that you can go out and really see these things. And it's kind of aspirational. One day maybe.
Oh no, I mean for sure. I think that golf is it's not just a. I think at the top level it's a sport. But for the rest of us, it's a part of our lifestyle. For sure. About the friendships, you have, and about the places you go.
Exactly. And just those memories.
Totally.
You always remember. I always remember those. And it's just the people that you're with at a particular time. And
couldn't particularly remember scores, but it's
scores don't matter. Like you said before, it's about the occasion. It's about where you are at that particular time, and with and who you're with.
Absolutely.
And PRG have got behind you as well. That's an interesting one from their perspective.
Absolutely. Probably, at the moment, the biggest brand in golf you've never heard of. Although now we're representing them and doing their PR. We'd hope that's a tag that doesn't last for long, but it's an incredible story. Steve Riley, the founder, set it up, coming up for their 20th anniversary. I think it sold some head covers into Royal County Down, and the rest is history. Really, it's an amazing business. They supply the vast majority of golf manufacturers, 7,000 golf courses, destinations worldwide, and then a lot of corporates as well. And they've got some really, really exciting projects going on with some of particularly the golf courses and corporates that they're working with, some of the licensing deals they've got coming up. But that came out of just a game of golf and a conversation with Steve last year, and Darren Phillips, who is came from the agency world, working now as Steve's COO, as that business really grows. And just building new offices in Carlsbad, which we'll share with them in California. And yeah, talked a little bit about what I was, looking to do. And they said, okay, who's investing? I said, well, been speaking to, a number of different investors back in the UK. And Steve said, oh, I might be interested. Okay. And I think he just sees the opportunity. Again, it's the connection thing that they, sort of deal with, vast majority of the golf industry who want accessories as either, products they need, whether it's the OEMs or for marketing and, merchandise. And he could see the opportunity for an agency to be able to really help bring those things to life. How do you bring a head cover to life? How do you bring a ball marker to life? So I think those, we'll do a lot of work with those guys, helping them develop the PRG Originals franchise, and then just, that storytelling around some of the products they supply to some of the destinations in particular. But yeah, I think Steve, Steve and I had sort of done various bits together over the years. So,
Right.
So it's really exciting. It's great to have, backing from, because for the four of us who've gone into business together, the business side of things was probably our Achilles heel. We had we know how to run a P&L or a spreadsheet, but running a business is a different kettle of fish. So we're going to get some great support.
I'm guessing, you've got to put food on the table for,
absolutely,
as much as you've worked hard at.
Most definitely,
you knew that it was coming from somewhere. Now it's got to come from you. Guys.
Absolutely, and starting from zero. We'll be representing PRG. We'd be quite disappointed if they'd have gone with somebody else. But we now need to start building our client base. We're making some good headway, having a lot of good conversations around that. So, but Steve's a businessman. He's not so it's not investing as a as a charity.
Investors, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We love the idea, but where's my return?
Absolutely. Yeah, very much so.
Very good. So you mentioned influencers.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Again, I think it was my son who told me that obviously Rick Seals has gone to live.
Yeah.
And he's lost 20,000 followers overnight.
Yeah.
He's got 10 million in his back pocket. So where do you see golf going in the future? In 5 years' time, where do you think golf is? Because it's an exciting stage. You saw on Friday night, there's that. You felt there was a different buzz about golf. It's a young, vibrant buzz, but also there's still a lot of people like ourselves who in our 50s, who nearly 60s, who love the game and still want to participate.
I think the important thing is, and why the reason why golf is doing well is because there are more formats of the game. There are more ways to interact with golf. Doesn't have to be, if you're just like a club golfer like us, doesn't have to just be 18 holes in a 4-ball on a Saturday. Now there are so many more ways to play golf, whether it's shorter course, par 3 courses, 9-hole courses, 12-hole courses, whether it's indoor golf, as we were at pitch the other night, whether it's top golf, whether it is, computer based, sort of gamification of the game. I think it's, to my mind, anybody who's holding a golf club and hitting a golf ball, and whether that is in the real world, whether that's on a golf course or a driving range or an indoor facility, or it's virtually, I think you're interacting with golf. And that widens the funnel at the top. And I think not everybody who comes into the top of the funnel, who hits a ball at Top Golf or goes to pitch for an evening or is playing, golf virtually, will end up as a member of a golf club. I don't think that matters. I think for too long, that was the metric of success, is like, okay, we start off, are you going to make it to be a full member of a golf club? As we know, there's, that, ability to be able to not be tied to one club is actually really exciting for a lot of people. We know as golf club members and a number of golf clubs, actually that community there is really important. But that's because it works for me. It might work for you, but for, girl or guy down the road, they might not, it's not really for me, but I want to play golf, I want to interact with the game. Likewise, I think up at the elite level, I think what's happening with TGL, what's happening with Live,
ITV getting the contract.
Absolutely, which is great. Huge, chance for more people to see the game. I think that, we're in that sort of at the top level, period of sort of turbulence, whilst everyone works out, who wants to be working with who. I think it will. The game's got to sort itself out. I think it will. Keep on hearing an announcement going to be fairly soon. But I think that as long as golf continues to evolve and continues to understand that it means different things to different people, and just because you don't want to play on a Saturday morning in a 4-ball, 18 holes of golf with a card, it's equally valid going and hitting 100 balls at the range or going to pitch for the evening and
having glasses of wine.
Absolutely. If you hit a few balls in the sim, have a glass of wine, have a chat, have something to eat. And it's that thing of golf being a lifestyle, hobby or a lifestyle,
exactly.
It's
lifestyle.
And I think the game has started, making good strides in understanding that, it's competing with for everybody's time and money. And it better, it needs to be a better product. It couldn't continue to just super serve traditional golf club memberships. I think that will always be a core part of the game.
Yeah.
But COVID probably, increasing that demand, golf was one of the first things you go and play. I think just got a lot of people going, oh, this is quite good fun. Yeah. But it's difficult games. So I think that, that gateway or that entry to it, top golf, indoor golf, is really important as well.
So 5 years on, where do you hope Luke to be? What would the future look like?
I'd hope we'd be representing some of the big names in the, golf equipment, apparel and footwear space, some of the big destinations. But equally, we want to be helping shine the light on great products and places that, haven't currently got the spotlight. Because I think it's, there are some brilliant products out there. You only have to go around the PGA show to see how many people come up with great ideas, and that technology and AI is driving real change. And I think, again, the chance to work with a brand who has a really exciting product, and they come from perhaps an engineering or manufacturing or, tech background, but they don't necessarily understand storytelling. So I think, exciting storytelling that helps, brands really communicate what they're all about, their USPs is really exciting. I'd love to think that we would have staged a number of events that are fronted by creators that are broadcast live, and obviously that's starting to happen with things like Desert Classic, Creator Classic. Those events, they're quite heavily focused on America, and even though we're an American registered business, we think interesting when you look at the best performing YouTubers and social media, call them influencers, social media content creators. A lot of them are from the UK. So in our current portfolio, almost all of them are UK based, but they've got big audiences in the US and around the world. Love to do some fun events with those guys and girls, and I think really important that roster that we have is reflective of the groups that we want to see come into the game. There is so much headroom for female participation, for non-white participation, for junior participation, and it's not at the expense of people like you and me,
absolutely,
middle class, middle-aged white guys. But it's to understand the opportunity of golf's going to grow. It's not going to be more people like you and me playing. It's going to be with more female golfers, more non-white golfers, more junior golfers. So I think, again, within, our vision for events and our vision for, our creator roster, that we want to make sure that we are putting on relatable events and have a, stable of creators who are relatable. If you're a young female golfer wanting to get into the game, it's a long way up to tour level, to the likes of Charlie Hull. It's like, how am I going to get up there? But actually, if you have if you follow or you engage with content from a younger female influencer, it feels like, okay, there's a genuine role model for me to aspire to. And see, okay, well, they've done it. They've
there's a lot of them out there as
absolutely
well.
Some really really talented content creators who are just super passionate. They love the game of golf. They love creating content, and they so immersed in whether it's YouTube or Insta or TikTok. They really understand those platforms.
I really like Iona Stephen. I've seen her.
Yeah, she's absolutely brilliant.
A few bits and pieces. Obviously, she's got that Sky background as well. She's from St Andrews as well. So I think I knew her when she was at uni or something like that when I was at St Andrews. But she's done really, really well.
Yeah, Iona's fantastic.
I totally agree that they really have a passion. It comes through.
Oh,
they're
most
also
definitely.
trying to find that story in their way.
And I think it's about that. I remember going to see Rick Shields last year and chat to him about his content. I've worked with Rick for quite a long time. He was Golf Monthly top 25 coach. We started doing a lot of content with both him and Pete Finch maybe about 10 years ago, and remained in good touch with those guys. And chatting to Rick, and he talks about long form and short form content. And for him, short form content was anything under 45 minutes. And then long form was like up to 2 hours, maybe more than 2 hours. And you think that when was the last time, maybe apart from the majors, you sit down and watch 2 hours of tour golf? Because you're dipping in at a start point, you're leaving at a finish point, and it's like, okay, well, what I've actually learned. You watch some great players hit some great shots on some amazing courses, but you've not had the whole story told. Whereas within a 45-minute YouTube vid or a 2-hour YouTube vid, you have seen it end to end. And I think that's where those guys are, are sort of, I wouldn't say winning the race for eyeballs, but why they're getting so many eyeballs is because it's relatable content. It's fun. You're learning stuff. You're going to see places. We've been taken to places that you'd love to go to, and you feel part of their crowd. And I think tour golf struggles with that a bit because of the,
just the league's too good. They're too good.
They're too good. It's not that relatable. There are probably fewer characters in the game, whatever being a character means. And that's why I think, why we're really interested in working with creators, brands and destinations. We think it's, it brings a lot of the exciting elements together for sure.
Fantastic. Mike, it's been a pleasure to have you.
It's been wonderful to be here. Thank you.
And cheers.
Cheers.